There we go. Okay, so good morning. I want to first, let me share my screen, and I'll mention, as I'll note on the screen, something that we said after the recording stopped yesterday. So I wanted to make sure that we had recorded it for posterity. And just to remind us where we're at, we ended yesterday with a cliffhanger because Rebbe did not invite Bar Kapara to his son's wedding, despite spending 240 million dinarim. It was, it was the word that the phrases was 24,000, 10,000. That was their math back then. They would, measure things in 10,000s. That was their unit. So anyway, the point is that, we 240 million dinarim. Now, after we finished recording yesterday, Charlie pointed out that at the time that Rebbe lived, the Romans reduced the amount of silver in their base coins so that what may have originally been worth effectively $1 became worth more like a penny. Of course, even at a penny, a dinar, 240 million is a lot. So the fact is that, why didn't Rebbe invite Bar Kapara? So let's understand that as best as the Gemara is going to offer us. And so let's jump right in. We're at the two dots on the bottom of Nun Amabet, 3 lines up from the very bottom. So Yoma de Mechayech be Rebbe, any day that Rebbe would laugh, Asya Puranasa La'olam, bad things would happen to the world. So first, let's understand what that means. So I think that the general understanding of this is that on some level, Rebbe viewed himself as the representative of the world and literally felt like he had the world on his shoulders. And he was going to take responsibility for the world. So if something happened bad in the world, so then he would need to be punished, and he would put on himself the punishment. We're not going to see it here, but Rebbe had a very difficult ending of his life, and with a lot of pain and suffering, and the idea being the idea being represented here is that on the other side of the coin was true as well. That if something really good happened to Rebbe, or if he had like a true enjoyment in this world, well, then he was not bearing the responsibility of the world, and as a result, he was, the rest of the world was going to suffer. It's not an easy idea. This is not an easy concept, for our modern sensibilities. But I do think that the idea of parent, of viewing the world at, you being responsible, meaning that when your child is young and they make a mistake and you clean up the mistake, whatever that kind of mistake is. So that's the kind, or in any situation, if it's your pet and they make a mistake and, and you clean up, that's Rebbe's view of his role in connection with the rest of the world. And so when he was not focused on that responsibility, so as a result he had a moment of levity, so then he wasn't taking the same responsibility with respect to the world. So given that, well, then now we have a problem, because we've already seen that Bar Kapara has a kind of sense of humor, because you need a little bit of a sense of humor to write on somebody's 240 million dinar wedding hall, that how could the guy spend that kind of money and not invite me, right? That's pretty and to do it in a way that, well, it takes some chutzpah, but to do it in a way, then this is, I think, key, to do it in a way that doesn't insult Rebbe, but is taken as humorous, is key, right? I mean, Rebbe doesn't get angry at Bar Kapara. He's like, all right, I guess I'll invite you, right? I mean, the point is that if he was really upset about it, if there was a meanness to the spirit of Bar Kapara, well, then Rebbe would have Rebbe wouldn't have reacted the way he did. He wouldn't have said, "Okay, come to my, you're invited," right? Okay, so now as a result of this attitude of needing to be not or needing to avoid levity for the benefit of the world, so Amar le Bar Kapara. So Rebbe said to Bar Kapara, "Lo tavadichan v'yahivna lach arba'in girive chiti." So listen, I'm very wealthy, right? So that this is a background for this, right? So he says, don't joke with me, don't make me laugh, and I'll give you 40 measures of wheat. So Amar le lech zeimar. Look, okay, but let's take a look at this, and now we turn to an aleph amid aleph. To kol geriva devaina shekilna. I don't think that's a good enough deal. I'm going to take as much as I want. If you want me not to make you laugh, you're gonna and just as Stan laughed, you can see where we're going here. So shakal tikula rabba. So he took a big basket. So this is what Bar Kapara did. Chayfye kufra. He put it. He coated it in pitch, right? So to make sure that it was like the baskets both for Moshe Rabbeinu and the Teva, he made it so that it was not going to leak exactly. Sachve al reshe, and he put it. Now the question is either upside down or on his head, meaning al rosha means to just turn something over. But the bottom line is either he put it on his head. And so here you've got a guy appearing before Rebbe with a basket of pitch on it with on his head, and he said v'azol v'amar and he said says to Rebbe, lechalimar arba in grive chite derashina lapach. Listen, come and all right, here's the basket. The basket's either on my head or it's upside down in front of me. I want to see you put the 40 measures of wheat in there. Obviously, he's joking because you can't put anything in something that's upside down, or most baskets that are upside down, you can't put anything in it. So, Rebbe. So of course, Rebbe laughed. Rebbe realized that the guy is joking. Amarle, and Rebbe says, I told you not to joke with me. I don't understand. What are you doing? So Amarle, I was, so. I'm not, so the question is sort of like, what does he mean by this? I'm just trying to get the wheat that I have a claim on. Meaning, the question is sort of like, what was the logic of Bar Kapara? Now you don't have to have a logic. It's a joke, right? So on some level, but the point is that the way I view it, to understand this Gemara is quite simply is that Bar Kapara decided to move from a word play, a joke using words that were written, to a joke that was in some ways all visual, but emphasized by the seriousness of his words, right? So here, his first step was writing words on the wedding hall, and now he is that were essentially a joke. So he had written joke, serious words. Then now he has again serious words, but now it's the joke is in his actions, and now we're going to see that he'll also have jokes with the words that he speaks. So he's made him laugh. So now we understand why it was that Rebbe didn't invite him, because for Rebbe, the wedding of his son was not intended to be a frivolous, joking affair. It was meant to be a serious and loving affair. But given his role in the world, he felt that if Bar Kapara was there, it wouldn't be a good thing. Bar Kapara, on the other hand, is like, no, we have a responsibility to make simcha for the wedding couple, etc. So, all right, so let's take a look and let's get into what actually happened at the wedding. So, Amar la Bar Kapara lavarte the Rebbe. So, now that he was invited to the wedding. So Bar Kapara tells Rebbe's daughter. So again, Rebbe's son is getting married, and he tells Rebbe's daughter, L'machar, tomorrow when I go to the wedding, Shasina Chamra Birikuda, I'm going to drink wine Birikuda de Avuch when your father is dancing. Uvirkane deimach, uvikirkane deimach. And so the Ran explains kirkane, that your mother is going to sing. But I think that it's easier to understand this as more like kirkane, as meaning to pour, or almost like I don't know whether it's a typo or a misprint or just a play on a kankan, that a container, meaning that she's going to pour me wine, because we're never going to see Rebbe's wife singing, but we will see her pouring wine. So Ben Elasa chasne to Rebbe Haba, and this daughter, presumably of Rebbe, was married to Ben Elasa, who was his son-in-law, who's Rebbe's son-in-law. V'asher gadol haba, and he himself was a rich man as well. Okay, so that's an aside. We'll find out why that's important at the end of the story. Asmane levei hilula de Rebbe Shimon beRebbe. So of course, and now he's going to the wedding, because we heard why he was invited to the wedding. He first wasn't invited to the wedding, and now he's invited to the wedding. So Amar le bar kapar Rebbe. So at the wedding, Bar Kapar says to Rebbe, "My toeva." Well, what's this word toeva? Now toeva is all three words that we're going to be talking about all relate to improper sexual relations. And so, clearly there's a connection between a wedding and improper sexual relations, because we actually say shehitir lanu es arusa shehitir lanu es oh gosh. All right. Anyway, the point is that the blessings that we say at the wedding enable us, note specifically that Hashem allows us to have marital relations only as a result of the wedding. And so the point that he's making is that's and so he's touching on that specific point. And so exactly. And so but at the same time, he's got an underlying joke in mind. So kol the Amar le Rebbe dehachen hu toeva, and every time Rebbe would try and give an explanation of toeva, so Paracha Bar Kapara would say, that's not the explanation. That's not a good explanation. Rebbe got frustrated. So Amar le Parshayak, you explain it. So tell me what's the explanation. So Amar le, so Bar Kapara said, Tesi devitchi tirmi li natla. Come and have your wife pour me a cup of cup to drink. Right. The point is that he's going to use this, right, to fulfill everything that he said would happen to Rebbe's daughter, right? So Rebbe's daughter, he had told Rebbe's daughter that I'm gonna get your dad, because presumably Rebbe would not be the one to dance frivolously at a wedding, and so as a result, Bar Kapara is showing that actually, for the learning of Torah, in order to get the answer to this question, Rebbe is willing to dance. So Asas Ramyale. So she came and she poured for him. So Amar le Rebbe. So Bar Kapara explained to Rebbe, Kum rekodli de Amar lach. All right. So now that she's poured for me, come dance a little dance, and then I will tell you my explanation. So obviously Rebbe did so. And Haki Amar Rachmana, what the Torah is telling us is toeva. To'eh atabo. To'eva is actually a contraction that should be understood as you're making a mistake. To'eh ata, you are making a mistake with this. So obviously this is and to'eva is the word that is used for improper homosexual relations in the Torah, and so that's what the Torah is highlighting, is that you're tripping yourself up in the wrong thing. So the
term is used for a lot of other things too.
Yes, that is true, but we'll see that so this one, the toeva is used in Perek Yudchet of of Vayikra pasuk kaf bet, pasuk kaf aleph. Let me just to make sure I get the right pasuk. Pasuk kaf bet, and now we're going to look at pasuk kaf gimel for the next one. So in the context, it's pretty clear that that's what he's referring to. L'chasa achrina amar le. So, and then to get in order to get another cup, so meaning Bar Kapara wasn't done with Rebbe yet. So he asked Rebbe, my tevel. What's the word tevel? Tevel's used in the next pasuk that in connection with bestiality. So Amar le ki inyana kadma, and so of course everything happened as exactly happened previously. So Amar le, so again Bar Kapara explained. Ividly de omerlach, again, do everything I said to you, meaning get me I need another cup from your wife. I need to see you dance. Abad Rebbe did it. Amarle tevel hu tavlin yeshba. So tevel hu is suggesting the concept of tavlin yeshba, is asking a question. Is there any spice? Is there any good taste in this? Of course, bestiality has no good taste. And so as a result, it's a rhetorical question where the answer is absolutely not. So ma shanya hada bia min kula bios. And so why did the Torah, how is this different from every others? Meaning that, that this is what it means, that that this is different from all other cohabitations, because there's no tablet and there's no, most people don't think it's good, and yet people would consider doing it. So Amar Le. So then finally a third one, Umaizim, a third joke that Rebbe, or third opportunity to get Rebbe to laugh and to get Rebbe's wife to pour him another glass of wine. So Amar Le, Ivid ki inyane kadma, again, do everything you did before. Avad va'amar Le, so he did, and he's explained. So what is zima? What's the word zima? Zima is in the following parak in Vayikra, and talking about a daughter who goes astray and becomes a zona, and so a harlot. And so as a result, he explained Amar Le, Amar Le zo mahi. So when Rebbe did what he said, when Rebbe did it, so then he explained zo mahi. Zima is zo mahi, meaning this one. Who is it from? Meaning, what's the origin story of this child? Because obviously, somebody who's sleeping around will eventually become pregnant, and nobody will know who the father is. So lo yachol ben Elasa lemispal. So ben Elasa, who we mentioned earlier, is Rebbe's son-in-law, was frustrated by this, because although Bar Kapara's intentions were clearly good, but at the same time, he felt that his father-in-law was being asked too much. That it was not a sign of respect. And so as a result, he just kam v'nafaku v'inse mitaman. And so as a result, he and his wife, the daughter, who presumably was the one that Bar Kapara had told he was going to do all this to, so they all left. So so Umay ben Elasa, and what's the story with ben Elasa? The Tanya lo lechinam pizer ben Elasa es ma'asa. Ben Elasa would not waste his money, and yet he got a special haircut. Elalaharos, and he got a special haircut that is going to show Elalaharos bahen tispores shel Kohen Gadol. He wanted to get a special haircut that would show exactly what the Kohen Gadol's haircut would look like. Diksiv kasom yichsemu es rashehem, because they would trim their heads. So they're referring to, understood as referring to the Kohen Gadol and Kohanim Gedolim. And Tana, we learned in a brisa, ke'em lul yanis, that this haircut was like a lul yanis haircut. Well, what's my lul yanis? What does that mean? So I'm Rav Yehuda. Tisparta yichidasa. It's a unique kind of cutting. Heichidami. How is it? How does it work? So Amarava Rosha Shelzeh B'tzad Ikaro Shelzeh. So you imagine that one's entire head is like literally one layer of hair. so that there's no place on your head where you have two hairs overlapping. And so that's the special haircut that a Kohen Gadol would have. And again, one could imagine that it could look very nice because you have just wherever their hair is growing on your head, you have like a blanket. It's almost like your head has been painted the color of your hair. So okay, V'hainu Tisbara shel Kohen Gadol. Now was the haircut that the Kohen Gadol would have, and so this is not somebody for which frivolous expenditures were something that he did. So again, and so that it helps us understand the nature of how, even though Bar Kapara's intentions were good, we have to be careful and maybe quite nice at the wedding of Rebbe's son, Rebbe Shimon, but at the same time, one needs to be careful about what they're doing and how it may play to other people who are watching. All right, so those are our stories. And now, sorry for not rotating my screen, but I'll put it up. And now we go back to gourds in our Mishnah. So, what did we say about gourds in our Mishnah? We said that if somebody said that they made a neder, a konam, not to eat cooked food. So the cooked food that we meant was only food that would be eaten with bread. And so therefore, a ramutza gourd you would be able to eat even if you said, I'm not going to eat cooked food. So uvidilas haramutza. So we said that was one of the things that you could eat. So my dilas haramutza, what is that? So Amar Shmuel, kara karkuzi. It's this kind of gourd from karkuzi. So now the issue is so that would suggest that it's a particular kind, a particular species of gourd. So Rav Ashi says, no, dilas hatamuna beremetz. No, it's just a gourd that's baked in hot ashes. Okay, so Esvi Ravina Ravina asked Rav Ashi, how can you say that it's any kind of gourd? Because we reference a ramutza gourd in the following brisa. Rabbi Nechemia Omer, dilas aramis, he dilas hamitris. That when you have a gourd from Arama, that's a gourd from Egypt. They're the same gourd, meaning that you're allowed to plant them together. Kiloyim im hayavanis. However, the Greek gourd, that's a different kind of plant, and so as a result, you're not allowed to plant with it. And similarly, kilayim im haramutza. And similarly, it would be, though the Egyptian and Aramean gourd would be kilayim with a ramutza, meaning it's clear the implication here is ramutza is not a method of preparation, but rather a species of gourd. Okay, so in fact, this undermines and refutes Rav Ashi's view. All right, Hanoder Mimasa Kedera. Now this is although it's printed as a Mishnah in our Gemaras, it's actually a direct quotation of the end of our Mishnah on Memtet Amud Aleph. So the Ran here is where he explains the Mishnah. So it seems like the wording probably should have been omitted from the Mishnah on Memtet Amud Aleph, and that really this is the right location of the Mishnah. So let's take a look at the Mishnah. Hanoder Mimasa Kedera. If you say I'm not going to eat anything that was prepared in a pot, Ein Asur El Mimasa Resachta. The things that you are prohibited to eat are only the things that sort of need to be prepared in a pot, meaning that it's only things that are boiled with a rolling boil, with a big boiling, because anything else you didn't need a pot to make it in. So Amar Konam Hayorid Lekadera Shani Toem. But if you were to go so far and make it a little bit broader and say, not that I'm going to focus on the things that are prepared in a pot, but rather I'm focusing on anything that goes into a pot, I'm going to say is konam with respect to my eating it. Well, then aser b'chol hanasa b'kater. Anything that's made in a pot is going to be problematic. So now we're going to build on this and look at a brisa that's going to help us understand. Again, we're back to the concept of what is the breadth of the words that we mean. So Tanya hanoder min hayored lekadera. If one says that they're not going to eat what goes into a pot, so aser beyored leilpas, then you're also prohibited to eat what goes into a pan. Why? Shekvar yorad lekadera kodem yorad leilpas. Because anything that goes in a pan, at least in those days, obviously was used as a finishing tool. So you wanted to finish the cooked item. Maybe you wanted to, maybe they knew that frying something wasn't a really good idea, but frying the outside of something, frying something all the way through wasn't a good idea. But frying the outside of something that may taste it better. But I'm not a historian. I'm just making that up. So anyway, the point is that in those days, what would go into a pan had already been in a pot. So as a result, it would that would be, once it was prohibited, it would remain prohibited. Min hayorad ilpas. But if you say I'm going to not eat what was in a pan, so mutter beyorad lekadera. If it only went into a pot, then it's okay because it didn't go into a pan. All right, and totally makes sense. Min hanasev bekadera. If you say that you're going to prohibit what was finished in a pot, meaning min hana'aseh, what became an object in the pot, well then mutar benasa beilpas. Well then, if you actually finish the cooked item in a pan, well then that isn't covered because it wasn't finished in the pot. Min hana'aseh beilpas, and of course, if you say I'm going to prohibit on myself what I finish in a pan, well then mutar benasa bekadera. Then something that is only used with a kadera, you would be allowed with a pot, you'd be allowed to eat it. Hanoder min hayored letanur. What if you say that I'm going to prohibit for myself the thing that goes in hayored? It's important to note hayored letanur, the thing that goes into an oven. Well, what are you prohibiting? You're only prohibiting the main thing that goes into the oven. And what is that? Ain aser ela b'pas. Then you're only forbidding bread. Amar kol ma'aseh tanur alai. But if you say anything that's made in anything that's made in an oven, well then you are really forbidding aser b'chol hanasim b'tanur. Then you're prohibiting anything that is prepared and finished in an oven. Okay, so now we get to the next Mishnah. We're continuing with the same theme, so let's jump right in. So min hakavush, if I say that I'm going to prohibit things that are kavush is sort of like preserved, but it often it's like pickled. So ein aser ela min hakavush shel yarak. Well, the pickling that we're talking about is generally, again, ha-kavush, the thing that is pickled, that generally refers to preserved vegetables, meaning when you refer to the X, then you're referring to the prototypical item. So, I mean, again, this is the way they use words then. Obviously, to the extent that we would use words differently now, we would follow the words that we all use. So, kavush shani toim. But if you say kavush shani toim, if you instead say no, anything pickled, I'm not going to eat. Well, then aser b'kol hakavushim. Then it doesn't make a difference how it was, what was pickled. It's going to be a problem. Min hashaluk. Now, again, the Ran understands shaluk. Usually, shaluk means cooked to an extreme, meaning that you cook it for such a long period of time that it essentially, disintegrates the food. And sometimes you can imagine that could be good. And but in any event, that is the typical understanding of shaluk. The problem with that understanding is back on Mem Tet and Aleph, we said that if you say you're not going to have a cooked food, you can have a shaluk food. So the Ran therefore says that in this context, and in part based on the concept that the words in Nedarim are sometimes used differently, so the Ran says here shaluk means undercooked. Other commentaries say no, it still means overcooked, and then they would have to explain how it goes from something that was prohibited to something that's permitted. And it must be that shaluk is like a fundamental change. Because the problem is that we just said that if you cook something in a pot and you say, I'm not going to have anything that was cooked in a pot, and then you finish it in a pan, it's still prohibited for you. And so as a result, because presumably it doesn't, so the underlying object doesn't change. Well, why does, when you go from cooked to overcooked, would it change? So there must be, so for those who disagree with the Ran, they must be saying that there's some fundamental change in the object when it becomes super overcooked. All right, but in any event, Eino Asr element hashalach shel basar. In the end, if you say that you're going to say that you're going to have something that's undercooked, you're not going to have something undercooked. Well, the only thing that we care about the undercooking of is meat. Shaluk shani to'aim. But if you say any kind of undercooked food, meaning again, if you say hashaluk, it's again the item that can be undercooked. Well, that refers to meat. Meat is, as we all know, very dangerous if it's undercooked. And so as a result, that's the understanding of being the thing that you wanted to try and make sure you are forbidding for yourself. But if you say anything that is undercooked, well, then asr b'kol hashalukim. Then it doesn't make a difference what it is. So again, if you say the undercooked item, it's just the meat. If you say any undercooked item, it means anything undercooked. All right, so Amar Le, Rav Acha, Brei, the Rav Avya, the Rav Ashi. So we have a series of questions now that that we're going to ask about this. And so, what's the what's the story with the following? So Amar de Chavish Mai. What's the story if I say it's preserved? It's pickled. The shalik mai, that which is, so again, it's not, you're not saying ha, so you're not using the, you're not using the what's the word, the word the is a it's just sort of specifying the specific item, but you're also not saying all preserved items or all pickled items. So that which is sort of like an in-between state. So do we say that it's inclusive, or do we say that no, it's restrictive? So again, that's the question. And similarly, dishalik, something that is undercooked, as the Ran would explain it, or overcooked according to other commentaries. What's the story? Did slimai, that which is roasted, what's the story? Demliach mai, if that which is salted, what's the story? So hichin mashua, what's implied? Do we say that it includes everything, or it includes only the item that everybody knows about? So tibai, it's unclear. The answer is we don't know. And so the truth is that, of course, the good news is that on this one, we can follow with whatever the intention is at that particular time. I'm not sure what the right answer is now, but the point is that we don't have to be limited to the answer that was in the time of the Gemara, because the Gemara specifically says that we follow the Lashon B'nai Adam. All right, min hatzli, continuing on, if you say that you're trying to you're taking out of being able to eat the roasted item, that we're only talking about meat, right? Because even though you can roast other things on a fire, the thing that everybody thinks about when they say they're roasting something is meat. Divri Rabbi Yehuda, that's what Rabbi Yehuda says. Sli shani toaim, if you say the roast that I'm going to eat, or anything roasted, so asar b'chol tzluyim, then it doesn't make a difference what you roast. Min hamaliach, from when it comes to salted things, ein asar ella min hamaliach shel dag. If you say the salted food, well, then that's referring to fish, because that's the prototypical thing that was salted at that time. Maliach shani toaim. If you say I'm not going to eat anything salted, well, then that's going to be asar b'chol hamaluchim. Then it doesn't make a difference what you salt. Dagim sha'ani to'aim. If you say fish and fishes that I eat, well then asar behen ben b'gedolim ben b'getanim. If you say all kind of fishes, well then that's going to mean all kind of fishes. Doesn't make a difference whether it's big, small, ben meluchim, ben tfeilim, whether they're salted or unsalted, ben chayim, ben v'shalim, whether they're raw or whether they're cooked. Umutter b'taris trufa uvitzir. However, when you say dag and dagim, you are referring to whole items. And so as a result, you would be able to eat a taris. A taris is we will see that is taris trufa, that is a chopped fish dish, and you can also have ubitzir v'murias, and you can also have the brines and fish juice, because that doesn't have fish pieces in it. So certainly you'd be able to do that. Hanoder min hatzachana, if you say you're not going to have tzachana, and the ran, so then asar b'taris trufa, then you would not be able to eat chopped fish, and the ran here helps us out. Top of the end of the top wide line in the ran, hanoder min hatzachana asar b'taris trufa, tzachana dagim ketanim harbe meluchim. Tzachana is when you have lots of small fish that are salted. The yesh mehem trufin, and some of them are pieces, some of them are cut up. Ela sheruban shleimim, but most of them are whole. V'getani dekevan sheyesh mehen trufin, since some of them are cut up, asar b'taris, so they're trufa, and that therefore you can't have a tris trufa, because you said I'm not going to eat the fish that are in a tzachana. That includes fish that are cut up, so you can't go and eat cut up fish even. You can either umiyu but siru murias mutar, but you would be able to have the brine, and so that's what the next words of our Mishnah are. Umutar but siru murias, you would be able to have the brine and the fish juice. So lefisha ein bahen chatichot, because in those things, in the brine and the fish juice, there are no pieces shel dag. There are no pieces of fish. Ella shemanu shmano vikravav. Right? It's just the like the innards and the and it's fat, and it's not actual pieces of flesh of fish. So hanoder mitaris trufa, and if you say you're not going to have a tris trufa, which is the chopped fish dish, well then the Ran changes the word asar here to mutter and says mutter b'tzirav murias, you're allowed to have the fish brine and the fish juice, and the Ran here, if we look in the Ran, it explains the rationale. Hanoder min hatris trufa mutter b'tzirav murias. When you have the tris trufa, you can eat you can still have the brine. So why is that? Nearly the lo shayach lemisnei hacha lo aser b'tzachana v'lo mutter ba. The reason that we don't reference the tzachana here is because we can't say, remember the tzachana was, as we explained in the previous Ran, was the fish dish that had both whole fish and partial fish. And so we've now said if the person's vow is only about cut up fish, well then we can't say anything about tzachana, because mishum de miktsasa mutar umiktsasa asur, because part of the tzachana is permitted, because the part that is whole fish is permitted, because you've only prohibited yourself chopped fish. The kaven de b'tzachana ika shleimim, because part of the tzachana is whole fish. Utrufim b'shleimim because in tzachana you have both whole fish and cut up fish. B'shleimim shari, and the whole fish are permitted. And b'trufim asur, and the cut up fish, those are the ones that are prohibited. And so as a result, we don't reference tzachana here at all. But you are able to have the fish brine and the fish juice. And we need to say it, this we have to teach this because I might have thought the cave and another matris, because you have prohibited yourself from the trees, shehi trufa dak dak, which is cut up into very, very small pieces. Yasur af b'tzir umer yas. I might have thought that maybe even the brine would also, and the innards would also be, and the juice would also be prohibited. Kamash malan, not so. As long as it's pieces, that tris, tris trufa is understood to mean that there are still, real pieces in it. All right, so now the Gemara explains on this, and then that will be finished as we reach the Mishnah below. So Tanya, Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, dag shani to'em. If you use the word dag, asur b'gedolim umutar b'ketanim. Dag means big fish. But daga shani to'em, if you say that I'm not going to eat a daga, then asur b'ketanim umutar b'gedolim. Then you can eat a a big fish, but you're not allowed to eat a small fish. So again, bottom line is Rabbi Shimon is saying, Ben Elazar is saying that dag means big fish, daga means small fish. Dag daga shani toim. But if you say both, well then asar ben b'gadol ben b'katan. Then you're prohibiting everything. So now Amrle Rapaye, my dag shani toim gadolhu. You seem to be suggesting that dag is referring to big fish. So maybe that's based on the following pasuk in Sefer Yonah, Dixi Vayiman Hashem dag gadol livlo es Yonah, that Hashem got a big fish to swallow Yonah. Well, 1 second. V'haksiv v'yispalel Yonah el Hashem elokav mimei hadaga. Yonah prayed to Hashem from the innards of the daga. So that's a small fish. So if you're saying that dag and daga refer to two different things, well then how did he get from a big fish to a small fish? So the halo kasha, that's not a problem. Dilma palte dag gadol uvale dag katan. Maybe he was first swallowed by a big fish and then he was swallowed by a small fish. Of course, it's hard to imagine that the fish that we would consider small would still be big enough to eat and swallow Yonah. But in any event, let's we'll go with that because it's not where the Gemara ends up. Ella v'hadaga asher b'yaor. So, well, 1 second. What about the fact that in the Torah it says, in connection with the makkah of dam, it says that the fish in the river died. And if you're going to say daga means only the small fish, katana mesum gedolim lo mesum, you're going to tell me that the small fish died and the big fish didn't die? Ela daga mashma gedolim umashma katana. No, rather dag and daga could mean either. And so as a result, one is we don't need to say, in fact, that the dag and daga referred to in Yonah refer to two different fish, even though there is a midrash that suggests that. Nedarim halak achar lashon b'nei adam. So while in the Torah, daga can mean both big and small, in Nedarim, halach achar lashon b'nei adam, when it comes to a neder, we follow a person's, meaning. So finally, we said hanoder min hatzachana. Our Mishnah said that if you don't have the tzachana, so then Amar le Ravina le Rav Ashi, Amar harei alat tzichin mai. What if you say tzichin, tzachana? Remember, hatzachana is the, and it's specific, and so it's referring to the specific item. But what if you use the plural of tzachana, which the Gemara suggests is the word tzichin? What's the implication? Does that also cause us to now also prohibit the fish brine? So tiboy, it's not clear. So as a result, we'll have to ask a linguist. If you were to say tzichin, well then what exactly do you have in mind? Now, next time we will pick up. I'm sorry for not having rotated my screen, so I'm going to do that slowly here. And then next time we will pick up with the question of dairy foods and cheese related to Nedarim, meaning what's included when you say dairy, what's included when you say cheese, etc., or pieces of whey. So we're going to figure all that out, God willing, tomorrow as we continue to understand the meaning of the words that we use. So I wish everyone a wonderful, wonderful day.
Yasher Koach, see you tomorrow. Be safe for the weather.
Amen. You as well. Thank you.